Hello and welcome to the Next 100 Days podcast. My name is Graham Arrowsmith.
And my name's Kevin Appleby. Well, Graham, this is dangerous. This is very dangerous. We've always said that we're not politically correct enough to go on the BBC.
Well,
so,
it's funny you should leave that.
We've got a BBC presenter as a guest this week. So Alfie Joey is going to leave us both in the dark here.
Yeah. Welcome, Alfie Joey, to the Next 100 Days podcast.
But I'm D-Mob happy, fellas, because I'm about to leave the BBC, so I could go out in a blaze of glory and join you in the un-PC world.
No, well... Yeah, well, it's definitely that here. But no, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I think local BBC is worth listening to. I'm just not so keen on the national stuff. It seems a bit preachy. But the local stuff, I mean, they're brilliant guys. I mean, and it serves a real purpose. Except when you're on the air, apparently. I mean, your job is to cheer people up in the morning. Apparently, how do you do that in Newcastle? It must be bloody difficult, mustn't it?
It's any breakfast show presenter's job to cheer people up and to get people going and set people up for the day and put people onto the school run if they're having the cornflakes or about to drive to work. I think it's our job to be jolly, and every day I get messages from people saying, "What are you on? How do you manage this?" But if you didn't do that, you wouldn't be doing your job.
Well, that bag of cocaine behind your head, that's probably the reason that you're so... No, there's loads of books behind you. Just for those people who cannot actually see the video, Alfie is in front of lots of books. So anyway, but you weren't always a radio presenter, but oddly enough, it was one of your earliest desires, wasn't it?
Yes, I did what I suppose lots of kids did when they got a cassette. You could press two buttons. You press record and play at the same time, and you'd tape yourself, and you'd hear your own voice back. And I used to tape Jimmy Young, Radio 2, the end of his words at the beginning of the song, and then a song, and then I would be the DJ and do my own little radio shows with my brother. So I thought, wow, wouldn't that be great one day to have my own show? Well, that'll never happen, and it did.
Sadly, I have to admit to have done that myself, but that was a long time ago. But I love the fact that
long time ago, Graham.
Well, all right.
The same thing, and here we are doing a podcast, which is effectively the same idea.
One of the three of us is the oldest, but I'm not going to say who. But the point is, I love the fact that you can actually remember the fact that you had to press two buttons to record. It's fantastic, isn't it? We have such a different perspective. Kids now, they record, tape.
Yeah, it wasn't uncommon to see a spool or a cassette on telegraph wires overhead next to some baseball shoes. And if kids saw those things now, they think, what the heck is that? Absolutely. They wouldn't know. And if you explain, even a CD would be anathema to most kids today. But yeah, I was definitely of that generation.
Yeah, well, it's not. Well, the thing is now, taking us right back to where you are. I mean, Kevin just admitted to listening to you, so you've got at least one listener in the northeast. I expect you've got lots more. Do you measure that? I mean, presumably you get into a lot of households.
Oh, it is. It's measured, and we're often, well, in my time there, we've often been the most listened to local radio breakfast show outside London, because that's a bigger place. So yeah, we've often been in competition with Sheffield and Liverpool, but we've often been there at number one outside London, and it's measured by radio. I mean, lots of people think, the old TV detector van. It's something like that, where they've got some kind of gun in a van and it can zap people's radios. And no. Radio is measured by just a very small sample of diaries that are left on people's steps or post boxes. And if they fill them in or not depends on whether you've put on 1,000 listeners or you've lost 1,000 listeners. Yeah. It's as dangerous as that. So when you hear Chris Evans has put on 3 million listeners, that is a very small sample size that's based on. I think in the future, they'll start measuring downloads and they'll start measuring people's online consumption because it'll be much more accurate.
But nonetheless, it's what we have. And so if you are, one of the most listened to breakfast radio shows, that's a tremendous feather in your cap.
Well, it's a responsibility, you know, and I never take it lightly. I've given it everything. I've been on over 10 years, and it is the worst sound to me on the radio is someone, what I call running the clock down, just phoning it in or running the clock down. And that's where you're just wasting time saying things like, well, we've got a lot of good things coming up on the show for you today. That to me is someone who doesn't really care. I think we put as much thought into every link, and we plan as much as we can. I put stuff in on Twitter the night before just to get the audience revved up the night before about what we're going to do, and they can join in then. So I've got a flying start the next morning. And every show is important and every link is important. I've not always got it right. Some days I've been tired, but I really believe it's the jock's job to entertain.
You are entertaining, but presumably, depending on the time of day that your show's going out, you have to deal with some fairly serious stuff as well.
Yeah, if you told me I would be interviewing chancellors and head of the opposition and people like that as a kid, I'd have gone, you're off your rocker. I'm not qualified or capable of that. And then I've interviewed Keir Starmer 3 times, the Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng.
You wouldn't have got much out of Keir Starmer, would you? I mean, it'd be like interviewing a block of wood, isn't it?
Do you know what? A lot of people always say when you interview, and he was the first guest I had in the studio after COVID. And we had him in, it's just me and him sat there for half an hour. And that's quite a long time. You know, John Humphreys and them only get them for about 10 minutes. And that's usually down the line. And there he was sat in the studio with me. So you play quite a few bits out and jingles in that time.
Got you.
So you chat between the links and people say, what's he like? And I'm disappointed to say that he was really nice and very charismatic, actually.
I'm sure he is. I'm sure.
But also, he didn't have any entourage, which a lot of them do. I've seen right. Jacob Rees-Mogg came, and there's a people carrier and all these interns with mobile phones and everything. And Keir Starmer, one fella with a phone next door who didn't come in.
I think you're mistaking Jacob's family, really, because they're all dressed in suits, aren't they? Let's face it. But I mean, what a fantastic exposure you have had to lots of people, people in public life. But your announcement that you're, shall we say, moving away from this role, it's happening sometime this month. So when's the final day?
The last day in October, so depending on when you've heard this, the last day in October 2022, and that's it. After 12 years on The Breakfast Show, 14 years, I think, on BBC Newcastle, I've decided to move on and try different things, and I've got lots of irons in the fire. I'll miss it incredibly. It's the best job I've ever had. A lot of people are saying, what people don't usually leave of their own volition. It's my choice, and the station a bit surprised because people don't normally leave.
Well, I'm not really that surprised, because there is a little, I can just see behind you, there's a P45 there saying on your bike, but I don't know if that's true actually, Alfie, but seriously, after 12 years they wouldn't have wanted to leave for you to go, would they?
Well, it's stable at the minute, I suppose, so probably not. And they've just had interviews and everything, and someone will be taken over. But that's the nature of it, It's the BBC. They should be able to find a really good person. I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
But I've got things I really want to do and try, and I always thought, wouldn't it be nice to leave of my own decision rather than somebody tap me on the shoulder and go, "That's it, mate, you're done now." And so it happened. The cards fell, and it was possible for me to do them.
Kevin and I have talked in the past. A lot of our guests have gone from corporate into looking after themselves, and it sounds like, in a way, that's what you're doing. Is that right, Kevin? I mean, we've had loads of guests in that.
And that's it. It's an ongoing theme of the next 100 days as a podcast. That's kind of, you're in corporate, you're about to step off corporate. What do you do in those first 100 days? How do you make a success of it? So it's a theme we've pursued quite a lot over the 6-7 years we've been doing the show, Graham, and it's a really interesting one to find out much more about. So Alfie, I guess you step away from the breakfast show first thing in the morning, the first 100 days after that, what's it going to be about, apart from not having to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Well, I've got a bizarre thing that I'm going to be doing for about 90 or 100 days after leaving the BBC. I'm going to be designing a pantomime set, because I draw, that's a sideline I do, and I'm drawing the costumes, and I'm going to be in the pantomime as well. So I'm going to be in Robin Hood and his Merry Men, and I'm playing all of the Merry Men at the Customs House in South Shields. And that almost buys me 90 days, 100 days between leaving the BBC and what I do next. Now, I know I won't have time to do anything when I'm in pantomime. So I've been planning the next 100 days for the last few weeks and months, really, to look beyond the middle of January, when I'll have an empty diary. And that's what my next problem to solve is. And I'm guessing that your guests had a similar problem. They'd work out what I do just after I leave, but it's long term that you've got to have a vision for.
It's a kind of repeating thing for us. I mean, in the sense that, if you say, I'm going to plan for the next 3 years, it's just not going to happen. All right, fair enough. You might have a plan. You might have written it down. I spent earlier part of this week, Alfie, writing out my plan for this year. And it's not so much of a plan. It's about 5 different things that I want to do, and with some numbers. And it's above my head right now, and I can see it, and I know what the target is for myself. And it's funny how things start happening, and you kind of reckon, oh, that's fitting into that one there. And things are happening already. This is my second week of this financial year. So basically, you have a plan, so it keeps you on the straight and narrow. But the plan doesn't go away in the second, third, the fourth, fifth, and sixth months, etc. You just have a different one. So in your case, I mean, you have all this experience with public speaking, etc. And you, I'm sure you can help people when it comes to communication. And you must have picked up some tips. I mean, interviewing the likes of Sir Keir Starmer and so forth.
Yes, that is absolutely the plan. I want to host events, as I've always done in the past. What happened with local radio was the goalposts moved during COVID, and I used to have a co-presenter, and it was a shorter show, and I used to go out a lot in the evenings and host events and awards and dinners and do after dinner stuff. And then COVID struck. I was on my own. They made the show longer, and it was a lot more draining, and I couldn't go out at night and do any more work. I missed it. And also, the danger was that I would lose all of those clients that had built up over the last 10 years. So that's it. I've got to go back into that world. But also, I'd like to stretch myself more in the actual public speaking. So while I've done lots of presenting, lots of hosting, lots of facilitating, I've introduced so many people who get up and do 20 minutes, and I'm the guy who's there for 2 or 3 days holding it all together. I wouldn't mind being the guy who turns up for 20, 40 minutes and does that bit. Yeah. And also coaching as well. I'm really passionate about helping people, motivate people, and telling people that they can do something if they want to do it. I've learned that crucially. If somebody wants to do it, I think I've got skills to get them to do it and give them self-belief. So that's what I'm excited about.
I'll try and link to it in the show notes, but I was watching a little earlier a TED talk that you were giving, and this is the TEDx, I think, in Newcastle. Yes. And you were very funny, and you started off with a terrible what was it called? Mimic of Donald Trump impression of Donald Trump, and then one of Barack Obama, I've got to say you got a bit more work on that to do, I think. But maybe up close.
I think you'll find I've got 3 million hits on YouTube for my Britain's Got Talent impressions.
All right, that's fair enough. No, no, honestly,
that Alfie is one of the places that you cropped up on. It really surprised me. You ended up on an episode of Britain's Got Talent.
Yeah,
I did, and again, it was something I didn't go looking for. I'm sure you're aware of this, but what they do now is they go scouting and they ask local drama clubs and they look on YouTube for people, and me and my pal had put some impressions on YouTube, and he contacted me and he said, he's a lot younger than me, Cal. So he's sort of at the beginning of his career, and I'm into my career. And he says, hey, Britain's Got Talent want us to go on, but it's next week. Can we go on? And I went, no. And my wife said, yes. and funny enough, my boss at the BBC said, yes, you're going on it. You know, you've done all that rehearsal. You put it up there. You may as well put it to good use. I said, yeah, but that's all right for you. But what if you get buzzed off? That's on YouTube forever. So that was my big fear. So that's why I immediately said no. And then I was talked into it, and I said, well, let's put some thought into this and make sure we don't get buzzed off. And it was great. We got standing ovation and 4 yeses from the judges, and it couldn't have gone better. The YouTube clips there, and it was one of the best impressions bits that they've had on that show.
Forgive me for not remembering it. I don't watch much terrestrial, but basically, what did you do on that occasion? Well,
this was the thinking. We did an A to Z. I wrote in just a couple of days. I wrote an A to Z of impressions, thinking, because me and my mate were a double act, and we did Ant and Dec for A. So I said, if we start with A for Ant and Dec, we're in. We can't fail. And they'll love that. And then we go B for Bruce Forsyth, C for whoever, and then we go right through the alphabet, but do it really fast and pacey.
Sure.
And I said, they can't stop that. They want to see who's in the alphabet.
Yeah.
Anyway, Britain's Got Talent got back to us, and they said, that's great, but don't do Ant and Dec. And I went, blooming it. So I think my mate did Alan Carr to start with, and I was a bit worried. And funny enough, David Walliams did say, he was one of the judges, and he said, do you know, I was a bit worried when you set that up, thinking, if this gets to C or D and you're not getting laughs, this is going to be dreadful. And he said, but you got us. And so they liked us, yeah. So there you go.
Oh, well done. I mean, I'm going to have to dig that out and become the 3 millionth and one viewership of that. But well done. I mean, what a fantastic. Well, the thing is about celebrities, you've got it, haven't you? You've got that celebrity and all those endorsements of the things that you've done. So actually using that to get new clients. I was just talking to a new client today, and they've got a very famous golfer that they're associating with something we're going to be doing. And I thought, I didn't realize that, and I thought, wow, that's fantastic, because this golfer we'd all know because of who that person is, and basically you've got the same thing. If you're in Newcastle, everybody will know you.
Well, it's funny, a lot of people know my voice, but it's always with the radio thing. It's funny because some people will hear you in the supermarkets when you've asked them, are these custard creams on sale? They go, are you are, aren't you? So it's usually a vocal thing. And then people sometimes recognize me from Britain's Got Talent, but sometimes people recognize me from sitcoms I've been in, or from different worlds, from different setups. So yeah, it's going to be handy. I was at the Public Speakers Association, the PSA, last night, and they made that point. They were asking me, it was a little mastermind group, and they were asking me about leaving the BBC, and I hadn't thought of it, but they were saying just those 3 letters, BBC, ex-BBC, can take you quite a long way. Yes, they haven't interviewed people just by being on that show, Oscar winners, Spice Girls, politicians. You can glue them all together and make it look like you've got an interesting jigsaw behind.
It seems to me that one of the strategies in the next 100 days has to be the association of your face and you with your voice, so that people do start certainly in the Northeast, because with due respect, you'll be less well known down here in Yorkshire, but in the Northeast you're like a superstar. So from that, but you've still got that challenge of the facial recognition. But I'd be very surprised because you're quite a distinctive looking fella. I mean, apparently you support Sunderland, and they're all like that, aren't they? Their eyes way too close together, and married to their brothers.
Well, actually, that was another thing I was in that I forgot to put on my CV, which was there was a Netflix documentary called Sunderland Till I Die.
Yeah,
and it did really well, and I'm in it doing stand-up. And I couldn't watch it because Sunderland got hammered that season. And I thought, I'm not watching that. People go, but you're in it. I'm going, yeah, but Sunderland lose every game. I know what's going to happen, and it's not very nice.
When Peter Reid got sacked.
Was it?
No, this was when Chris Coleman was in charge, when they had successive relegations. That was Premier Passions was the one with Peter Reid.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Sunderland are one of these really big teams who have underperformed. And supporting Leeds United, I know exactly how you feel. So, and the truth of it is, you've got a fantastic supporter base, and you've probably not had the success that that your supporters deserve. But doesn't mean to say you can't come back. And that rush of excitement when you're coming back up the leagues, beating teams, you've got that in front of you.
Yes, I know. I'm quite enjoying this season. They've just lost a couple, but I think it's much, much nicer than the last few seasons in the third tier. So, yeah. We're enjoying it.
Good for you. And
yep, as a Newcastle supporter, you don't want Sunderland in the first division or the Championship. You want them in the Premier League. Yeah. You want them to finish in that 17th spot, just above the relegation zone, so you can take another 6 points off them in the derbies the following season.
Yeah, I think
the derbies are great. I love them.
I think Kevin's become progressively more money orientated since these wealthy people took over his club.
I wonder why.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
that was one of the big stories on Alfie's breakfast show this morning. There's clips from big interview with our new chief executive Darren Eales about how the club's got to develop commercially and beat the financial fair play rules. And hey, he's got a plan in place for a hell of a lot longer than the next 100 days.
Good for him.
It's very impressive, actually. One of the changes could be the changing of the name of the football stadium, which that might just throw a cat among the pigeons. But hey, if they keep buying players and they keep moving up the league, I think they'll get over that.
Did you get your listeners to sort of ring in their desired names? Because it'd be so much fun, wouldn't it? Because all the Sunderland fans coming up with some spurious names and Newcastle fans not knowing quite what to say. Really, I mean, Kevin, do you have a view as to how you would, shall we say, name St James Park? What would you call it?
You'd need to have something like Greggs at St James's Park, wouldn't it? that would start putting Greggs back on the map properly as a Northeast company. Having worked all over the country as a consultant, the number of people that think Greggs is a Manchester business is unbelievable.
Is it? Do they really think that? Oh,
yeah.
No, not here. But, well, I mean, what can I say? If it's in the south of sort of Derby, then well, But the point that you could be called, is it the Sage Station? I mean, Sage is quite a big company up in the north east.
Sage is huge, but we've already got the Sage, which is the big music venue.
Oh, right.
Building another Sage, which is going to be, a big arena venue right next door.
But you could call it the Stadium of... Oh no, the Stadium of Light. That's somebody else's, isn't it? So
well, we always refer to ourselves as a Stadium of Noise.
Oh really? Oh, I don't think so. It's like a mausoleum at Newcastle. But what can I say? But seriously, I do think this whole banter thing in the Northeast is fantastic. It's great. It's great. It's a real bonding thing. And I imagine that if Sunderland fans and Newcastle fans are away in some, in the Spain or something like that, they'll be mucking along just fine.
I think that was one lesson that I used to joke quite a bit about the football when I first started on the breakfast show. And my very good manager at the time said, watch football. Be careful with football. Yeah. You don't want to lose half the audience because it is very tribal. There's banter, but also there's people just really... So I try and make everything positive in the world.
Yeah, we used to have 100,000s listening to this, but I've alienated all of them. But don't worry about it. We're not that bothered. But seriously, no. I mean, the thing is, if you can learn something and at the same time enjoy the interview and enjoy the conversation, then that's really all that counts. Because nobody will be keeping score when we're in our box, will they? So but at the end of the day, you're going to be doing this sort of, you've got this change. You must be really quite a bit nervous, maybe.
Oh, massively. Yeah. Because it's a huge risk. Looking at, I've never had an empty diary for 25 years. I've been very busy, my work's always been varied and I've been very lucky. And then suddenly I'm looking from January, I've got about 1 gig a month, and that has to fill up. It is starting to fill up now, and I've got lots of plans for the next week or 2 weeks to make that really happen. And it is just an unusual situation, but I'm confident, and I've had lots of sessions with different people who are sort of coaching me or advising me to how to make that happen.
I love that. The thing is, in your childhood, what you were saying in your TED talk is you know, you had, like the rest of us, many of us, we had a fairly tough childhood, and you wanted to be a priest.
Yeah, very similar, a Billy Elliot style affair, because my dad was a strike and coal miner, and it wasn't normal to want to do the things I wanted to do. And bizarrely, Kevin and Graham, I wanted to do all of the things I've gone on to do. But at the time when I was a kid, kids like me didn't go into show business, and they didn't go into writing and drawing kids' books. And that was fantasy land. It was more plausible for somebody to train to be a priest than it was for somebody to. And I went off and did that for 15 years. And all that time I was drawing, and all that time I was singing and dancing and trying to be show businessy without ever thinking it was ever a possibility. And then when it did happen, that was it. I thought, wow, it is possible. And it probably was possible all them years ago, but I never thought it was possible.
It's also if you did 15 kind of years doing that, and you've done 15 years more or less at the BBC, I wonder if you get a 15-year itch.
I did. Well, it's probably I think when I've looked back, it's almost every 10 years I've had quite a big change. So this was I probably lasted a bit too long at the BBC. So the next 10 years hopefully will be a lot more speaking and a lot more drawing kids' books. I'm absolutely loving that at the minute, and I want to go into schools, and I really enjoy doing that.
What do you think? Right, so I'm just future casting you now. So basically, you're now with a client in a few months' time, and they're saying, "Oh, Alfie, I'm so glad to meet you. I've been listening to you for ages, or at least listened to you a little bit, or I saw you on Britain's Got Talent and all that kind of stuff." And basically, we're here to talk about public speaking. Tell me, I mean, it must be natural for you, Alfie, but tell me, how do I improve? So how would you guide them? Just thinking about it now, what is it that you would give them advice on?
Personally, I think lots of people I hear are very prescriptive, and you must do it like this. This is the way to do it. And I would reverse engineer that from my experience and say, find how you should do it, because that is the answer. The answer's inside you. And when I started interviewing people at the BBC, there was this, well, you really must attack them. You really must get a Paxman style Rottweiler thing going, and you must really, if you think of the most famous interview that Jeremy Paxman did, he wasn't like that. He went against type, and it made it more interesting. It was did you threaten to overrule him? The Michael Howard interview.
Yeah.
And he starts out, he goes, no, did you threaten to overrule him? And he just keeps repeating that very softly, very quietly. Yeah. And he's more interesting because he's not like Paxman. Yeah. So sometimes if you play against type or play with who you are, you can find who you are. And that in comedy or in public speaking or in any kind of profession where you're using your voice, you have to find your voice. Frank Sinatra didn't sound like Frank Sinatra when he started out. He sounded more like Bing Crosby. Yeah. And most singers find their voice. It takes them a while. You listen to their early records and they're not them.
A couple of weeks ago, I went to Florida to see a guy called Dan Kennedy, who has for years sold his products from the stage. He's great, big direct marketing guy, and literally quite big. He's 6'4". You know, it was coming out of a lift when I was going into it, and it's a bit like he was towering over me. But point is, his story was he used to say that you could almost like set your watch for the part of his presentation about what he'd be saying. So in other words, at 13 minutes in, he would be talking. It'd be this particular story, or whatever it was, and that's what he would be doing. So it was practice, practice, practice. And I don't know, does that ring true, or is that not necessarily in line with your thinking?
No, I love rehearsing. I love rehearsing. But I tend to have this thing where I get distracted while I'm rehearsing myself, and I'll go off on tangents, or something will occur to me. But I think if you know something so well, and if you have it planned so well and rehearsed so well, then I think you're allowed to improvise. That gives you a perfect place to improvise from.
Yeah.
And something can go off in the room, but you're all right because you're equipped to go back to where you're meant to go.
Yeah.
So you won't get lost. Kids are great for it. When you go into schools and you're reading a book or you're doing a talk to kids, leave that much of a gap, and they'll come in with something you don't expect. This is true. I was in a school, and I said, I tell them a story. I can't remember what I was talking about. And I said, imagine. And I left that much of a gap. And this kid put hands up and went, yeah, that's a song by John Lennon. I went, yes, Imagine is a song by John Lennon. Another hand goes up. I went, yeah, would you sing us a song now? I looked around, and the teachers at the back of the room bristle and go, what's he going to do here? I had to sing a song. And that was my fault. I'd left a little gap. But I did the song, and they liked it, and they went, wow, brilliant, give me a clap. But then I had the skill to go back to where I wanted to go. But I had that freedom and that skill to improvise away from something, but then come back to the journey.
And of course, that's going to draw the audience in, just like the children. I mean, that's going to draw people in because you allow yourself to be, shall we say, interrogated. But I think Kennedy's very much about, I've got an hour, I have to get through this, and I want to sell stuff at the end. And and so many people didn't sell stuff at the end. And I've had an experience of that. I was in this audience, and people, they were saying, right, you've got, you can go to the back of the room now, and people literally getting up and going to the back of the room to spend money. So it was incredible to see, but they very focused on actually generating income from speaking publicly. Very interesting stuff. But I also like what you've suggested. We're a bit like that, Kevin. Yeah. We'll go off at tangents.
We'll go off at tangents, but
one of us does.
There's something there in the way Alfie's done that. I bet those school kids remember Alfie for a long time to come, over and above maybe half a dozen other people that have come to do a similar thing, because Alfie went and did that ad-lib song, and it'll stay in memory. And we've been talking to a PE fund about doing some away days, and one of the conversation topics around those away days is, what are we going to do to make this memorable? What do we do to put in? And I flipped back to a PwC event. We'd been away for an away day. I think we'd hired a part in a Cambridge college. We got an after dinner speaker in who was quite a name. Turns up on Have I Got News for You every week.
Who's that?
I'll give you 3 guesses.
Well, is it Ian Hislop?
It was Ian Hislop. Yeah, it was Ian Hislop. Talking about court cases I fought. But Ian turns up, he gives his standard 45-minute speech, and he's away. And to be honest, he got a few laughs, but it was pretty boring. We had another gig on afterwards in the bar next door, and this guy that nobody had ever heard of, this comedian, turns up. And he does a fantastic routine in this character called the pub landlord. And oh boy, haven't those folks that were there that night been talking about that night for a long time afterwards? Not because of Ian Hislop turning up and doing his standard 45 minutes, but here's something new, here's something different, here's something memorable.
I mean, like Kevin says, you must have so many stories. Stand-ups. Is it going to be part of your future as well? Are you still going to do a few stand-ups?
Yes, I will. The stand-up comedy circuit's not in good shape. It's the worst I've known it, because there's so much. There's fewer gigs, and there's hundreds more comedians than when I started out. When I started comedy in the late 90s, early 90s, I knew pretty much every comedian on the circuit, because there weren't that many of us. And now, because of Live at the Apollo and Michael McIntyre, there's hundreds and hundreds. The Edinburgh Festival has eaten itself. There's too many shows go up there, and they're not sort of regulated. Anyone could do a show in front of a fireplace at the Edinburgh Festival. So there's almost too many comedians to make any waves. So I'll keep doing it because I love it, and I think I'll always be a comic. But I'll use some of those skills. I used some skills the other night doing a variety night with, see if you remember this fella, Freddie Parrotface Davis.
Yeah.
Now, when I was a kid,
that's going back a long time.
Oh, yeah. He's 85 now, and his opening gag was, "You thought I was dead, be honest."
Funny, Alfie. I was just about to say, I thought he was dead.
No. Well, it was lovely that he's still working at 85. That's fantastic.
Oh, it's amazing. And he was doing new jokes. He was doing fresh jokes. I'm pals with Jimmy Cricket. Again, I love the old school guys. And I supported Bradley Walsh at the Winter Gardens and Mick Miller. I love the old school guys because they just, you can parachute them into any situation and they know funny. The way out. They can get out and they're funny.
Yeah.
And I just love watching their artistry. And Freddie was just brilliant, but it was a variety night. So I had a lot of filling to do. And it reminded me of when I used to do a lot of TV warm-up work. I did warm-up on Al Murray's Pub Landlord sitcom.
Yeah.
And I used to do the warm-ups for University Challenge, and I used to do a lot of Granada TV warm-ups. And they're hard blooming nights. There's 4 hours where you might be off and on and off. And right, a light bulb's gone. Alfie, can you just do 10 minutes? Or you don't know how long you've got to do because you just called upon all night. It's pretty thankless. But the skill set you get from that is the exhausting sort of night you go through make you bulletproof in other situations.
If somebody came to you and said, "I really want to be a comic," what would you say to them?
Oh, I've done stand-up comedy courses. And, Jimmy Carr and Eddie Izzard did a stand-up comedy course. So it is possible to teach someone who wants to be funny. And that's another thing I would like to do as part of me public speaking and coaching. If businesses want, but you can't just do it in one session. You've got to do it over time and do it, grow over a few weeks, and then you have much more fun and get a lot more out of it. It wouldn't really work just in an hour.
I remember the Bernard Manning joke about the guys in Goose Green, and we've got a couple of guys in from Goose Green tonight, and they're all clapping. Said they're Argentinian, and if you, it's just the timing.
The timing
was just. I mean, for me, it's such a shame he's gone on now. But basically, the timing was awesome, and a lot of the people at that, like you said, the McMillers and other people. The guy who did the Bullseye,
Jim Bowen, super smashing, great,
what's his name again? Sorry,
Jim Bowen.
Jim Bowen, of course, he was Jim Bowen. But I was in a very small group working for Lego, the toy company, and basically they hired him to come in. And just like you're a gig, Kevin, I don't think I've ever laughed as hard as with him. It was just amazingly funny. And it was just hurting the sides funny. And so basically, at times, there are times in your life when you really want that. And I'm a trustee of a charity, which is a town hall. And we're now planning to get a comedian slot in our schedule. And I thought this is going to be really hard. Apparently, it's not going to be that hard to get somebody in.
Oh yeah, you should have someone within your postcode. There'll be a comedian now. How good they are, But then again, a lot of them put stuff on YouTube and they put stuff out there now in a way they never used to, or TikTok or whatever. So you can get a good snapshot of whether they're the right person for you or not.
Yeah, well, I mean, it'll be a tough audience, that's for sure. But
the power of comedy within that public speaking gig is amazing. One of the funniest men that I've ever seen isn't a comedian. But say it was during a period that I was on secondment to London 2012, and we had a corporate event again, and the star speaker was Chris Akabusi. He was absolutely fabulous. Funny. The number of times he talked about Roger, Pretty Boy Black.
Yeah. He was quite a fast runner, though, wasn't he, Roger Black? I mean, he was quite good.
That's the whole story. It's about Chris being the army lads and having to do things the hard way and suddenly have to run after Roger Black.
Yeah. Such is life. So going forward again, then you're going to be doing all kinds of different things. How will you make your mind up as to which of the dozen or so different angles that you could be? You talked about being an artist, a comic, and a public speaking coach, all that kind of stuff. Which is going to drive because you've only got the same number of hours as the rest of us. Looking at you, I wouldn't buy a Christmas tree if I were you. You'd be wasting your bloody money. But no, I'm only kidding. No, seriously, you've got a long line. You're quite a young man. Seriously, what are you going to decide to do?
Well, I'm going to have so much more time because I've been getting up for 14 years, 12 years at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And I've loved that. And I don't mind getting up. People say, I don't know how you get up. Getting up isn't the problem. Getting home at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and feeling like a zombie for the rest of the day. Yeah. That's the problem. And that's the bit where you just feel you walk around in a fog for a few hours and you can't wait to go to bed. Yeah. So I'm an early riser normally. So I plan to, I'm not one of these people who watches daytime telly. I'm going to get up, and I've never had the time to draw, but I managed to draw some books while I did the breakfast show and do gigs and everything. So I'm suddenly going to have so much more time. Yeah. So I'll be able to draw quite a bit early in the mornings. That's when I tend to draw best, when I would have been doing the breakfast show.
Right.
And then after that, I can go out and do the gigs and prepare to do the gigs. So 3 things is the plan. I want to go into schools during the day, and, I'll control that, and I'll do so many a month, and I'd keep it local at first in my own postcode. So I'm not using up lots of time and traveling, and I just do local. A lot of it's coal mining art and stuff like that anyway. So it works around here, especially. Yeah. So that's one plan. Kids books. Right. Draw 2 kids. I've got 2 kids book series that I've mapped out. So that's one plan. Then it's get back into hosting events, which I find I do that. I've been doing that for a long time. So I'm quite well versed at that. And then the third thing is public speaking and coaching people to talk. So I'm trying to funnel it into three very distinct things. So that's the plan.
Good for you. And I suspect, Kevin, that Alfie's going to be extraordinarily successful, not least because of who you are. The fact that you've worked at the BBC is going to be a big help. I agree with those people. But at the end of the day, it's who you are. And you've made your time at the BBC a very attractive proposition. And I think that's one of the things that's going to pay for you in the future. And, well done to you. Big shame you're leaving the BBC, but, you won't be the only one.
Life goes on. I think I'm on Radio 4 tomorrow morning, by the way.
Oh, right.
They've asked me to do a little, before I go on air and do my show, they've asked me to do a little review of what's coming up in the Northeast for their show. So it should be interesting.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah.
Well, that'll be a big blank piece of paper with note on it. At the end of the day, what's going to go on in Newcastle this today? Well, no, really. Greg's is opening. Apart from that,
Sunburn's trophy cupboard.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm sure you'll
get the last laugh.
No, I'm sure you'll come up with something, and it's worth tuning in to see what you actually say. But
of course, Alfie missed the classic reply: "Is we've won something more recently than you."
Well,
I was there.
Yeah. Well, Alfie, it's been an absolute pleasure. A real pleasure having you on the next 100 Days podcast.
Graham, Kevin, thanks very much for asking me. It means a lot.
Well, Alfie moves out of big corporate. Certainly got a plan for the next 100 days doing the pantomime. Mm-hmm. He's got a challenge there of 2023 and a diary that's still not full. But I'm sure that the face rather than the voice gets known. And that diary is going to fill up once people know that Alfie's available to do stuff. And I know off air, he's just talked to us about a potential podcast he's thinking of starting. So watch out for that. Mm-hmm. Might even see Graham and I as guests on there. You never know.
I don't know about that. He'll want fun people. But seriously, or people can speak, Kevin, which rules one of us out. But no, seriously, he's been a fantastic guest. And I think the thing is, he's so humble. And there he is, starring in potentially, you know, outside of London or the big BBC Central audiences, one of the biggest audiences that people, you know, listen to local breakfast radio is his. And so, yeah, I think the BBC will miss him because he's so distinctive, Kevin.
Oh, he is very distinctive. His presenting style is quite unique, and I think that's what makes the show so listenable.
Yeah, and I people have told us that we have this natural, I don't know what's the right word, just a chatty style, and it comes across sometimes so much more. It's almost like you're earwigging on a conversation next to you on the train or something like that you're interested in, as opposed to it being annoying, and or in a cafe bar and something like that. But I think because we are genuinely interested in him, and you know, and we did a little bit of research, but not massive amounts. But the fact is, he was a very interesting guest, and I think where he's moving to, I think he's got a future. I think the only challenge from my point of view is what he kind of comes down on most, because I don't think he'll be able to do everything longer term. I think he'll have to choose, because he'll find it'll be brilliant at one thing and that'll lead to something else that he's not even thought of now.
And my experience, Graham, is that you never have to actually make the choice. No, your clients will make the choice for you.
I think that's where I was going, really. But I mean, at the end of the day, it will be something will do really well for him that he really enjoys. And it might not necessarily be to do with money. It might be to do with, you know, time and the amount of time. But then, you know, if you're doing a gig at night and you're doing something early morning, you're burning the candle, aren't you? So you have to think through what you're going to do, so you're effective. Particularly as he's, you know, he's not 21 anymore. So basically, there is that aspect to it as well. So another great podcast, this time with a person that you listen to, Kevin, in the morning in the Northeast, soon to have moved out onto his own. So if you're listening to us, by the time this comes to air, you might be finding that Alfie's just about gone. Or if you're listening to this in the future, he's already gone from the BBC. So today,
you can always find him on those clips on YouTube. Oh
yeah, you can. Ones that I didn't research. But today I've been Graham Arrowsmith.
I've been Kevin Appleby. Goodbye.
Goodbye.